There are storms in politics, the kind that batter and bruise, that rage for a news cycle before blowing over, leaving the landscape mostly unchanged. We're used to them. They're the background noise of our democracy. But then there are earthquakes, the kind that don't just shake the surface but crack the very foundations. They shift the ground beneath our feet, permanently altering the terrain. What we're witnessing now, this isn't a storm. It's an earthquake. The Trump administration is no stranger to controversy. It's practically fueled by it, thriving in the chaos that sends its opponents into a frenzy. But today, the force shaking the foundations of the White House isn't coming from the outside. It's not coming from the media or the Democrats or a foreign power. It's coming from within. It's not policy decisions, international conflicts, or even the state of the economy that's putting the administration under a level of fire it has never experienced before. It's something much darker, something that cuts deeper and more painfully than any political ideology. It's the lingering toxic shadow of Jeffrey Epstein. For years, that name has been a whisper, a byword for a horrifying confluence of unimaginable wealth, untouchable power, and sickening abuse. It's a story that has always felt incomplete, a book with the final, most crucial chapters ripped out. Despite his death, and despite multiple, seemingly endless investigations, one question has haunted the public consciousness, refusing to fade away. Who was protecting him? Who are his clients? Who are his friends? And who helped keep it all silent for so long? Now, that very question is no longer just a ghost haunting the halls of power. It has materialized, and it is threatening to consume the Trump administration whole. And in doing so, it's causing a catastrophic fracture in the most loyal, most fervent political base in modern history, the MAGA movement. This isn't just a disagreement, it's a schism, a crisis of faith. To understand how deep this cut goes, we have to rewind. Let's go back to the energy, the promise, the raw, unfiltered phenomenon of the campaign trail. Donald Trump, the outsider, the billionaire populist, didn't just run on policy points. He ran on a pledge, a sacred vow to his followers. He would be the sledgehammer to the establishment. He would march into Washington and do what no one else had the courage to do. He would drain the swamp. He promised to pull back the curtain and expose the rot, the deep-seated corruption that ordinary Americans always suspected was there, festering just beneath the polished surface of public life. And one of the most potent symbols of that rot, one of the darkest corners he promised to flood with light, was the Epstein case. Full disclosure, total transparency, no more secrets. Trump's supporters, the millions who flocked to his rallies, didn't just want tax cuts or conservative judges. They craved something more visceral. They wanted the truth. They genuinely, passionately believed that Donald Trump was the one man who could and would finally lift the heavy veil on what many saw as the most sinister and far-reaching cover-up in American history. He wasn't part of the club, they believed, so he had no reason to protect its members. But now, standing in the second term of his presidency, that promise doesn't just appear broken. To many, it feels like it's been shattered into a million pieces. After years of breathless anticipation, of online communities digging, decoding, and demanding action, the long-awaited Epstein documents were finally, quietly, released to the public. The moment of reckoning had arrived. But the explosion of truth never came. Instead, there was a deafening silence. The results? A dry, clinical, infuriatingly unremarkable statement from officials. The official cause of death was confirmed, once again, as suicide. The files were a labyrinth of redacted pages and rehashed information. There were no new names of consequence, no bombshells, no real answers. And just like that, with the soft click of a government press release, the door was slammed shut, case closed. But Trump's base? They're not just standing at the closed door. They're starting to tear it off its hinges. To them, this isn't just another political disappointment. It's a profound, gut-wrenching betrayal of the very soul of the movement. They didn't vote for business as usual. They didn't vote for carefully managed press conferences and redacted reports. They voted for a reckoning. They were promised a revolution. And instead, they feel they've been handed the oldest tricks in the book: silence, spin, and excuses. The very tactics of the swamp they were promised would be drained. Inside the Beltway, the fallout is already metastasizing. The earthquake is sending tremors through the halls of government. Whispers from anonymous sources, leaks to trusted journalists, they all paint a picture of an administration at war with itself. Reports suggest serious, bitter infighting between a Justice Department that wants to bury the issue, an FBI caught in the middle, and a White House paralyzed by indecision. There are rumors that senior officials, true believers who signed on for the revolution, may be preparing to resign in protest. Others, deemed obstacles to containing the fallout, may be forced out. All of it points to a government teetering on the edge, an administration potentially unraveling, not over a war in a distant land, or a fight over the federal budget, but over a question that, it seems, no one in a position of power is willing, or perhaps able, to answer publicly. What really truly happened with Jeffrey Epstein? Now, to an outsider, to someone not steeped in the culture of the MAGA movement, this might all seem bizarre. In a world facing economic instability, geopolitical crises, and domestic challenges, why is this the issue causing such a ferocious political storm? Why is the ghost of a dead predator still shaking the very foundations of American politics, years after his demise? The answer is as simple as it is profound. It's not just about Epstein anymore. It was never just about him. It's about trust, or more precisely, the catastrophic loss of it. The millions of Americans who formed Trump's base didn't just support him, they believed in him. They believed they were backing a man who was fearless, a warrior who would gladly go against the entire system for them, a man who would finally hold the decadent, untouchable elites accountable for their alleged crimes, a man who wasn't afraid to name names, no matter how powerful. But now they're forced to ask the most painful question of all. Was he ever really in control, or was the swamp deeper and more powerful than even he could handle? The MAGA movement was forged in the fires of a deep and abiding skepticism. A skepticism of government, of the mainstream media, of every established institution. It's not just a political alignment. It's a worldview. It's a gut feeling that you are constantly being lied to. And so, when that same government releases a vague, heavily redacted summary and declares case closed on the mother of all conspiracies, that skepticism doesn't just simmer, it explodes like a supernova. This isn't about Trump's critics anymore. The anger from the left was always a given, a constant. This is new, this is different. This is a fire in the heartland. It's his most devoted, most loyal followers who are feeling the sting of betrayal. To them, the Epstein scandal isn't political, it's moral, it's biblical. It represents the absolute pinnacle of everything they believe is rotted and wrong with Washington. The secrecy, the special protection for the elite, and the complete and utter lack of accountability for the powerful and well-connected. They were told there would be justice. They were promised that the truth, the whole ugly truth, would finally come out. Instead, they're left with blacked-out documents, circular official statements, unanswered questions, and a government that they are rapidly beginning to distrust, as much as they distrusted the ones before it. And as this chasm of distrust grows, so does the rift within the Republican Party itself. The establishment wing watches in horror, while the populist wing feels its leader has lost his way. Trump's second term began with sky-high expectations from his base. Many believed that, freed from the need to seek re-election, he would finally unleash the Kraken. He'd go even further than before, shaking up foreign policy, scaling back immigration enforcement to levels never seen before, and, most importantly, declassifying the files that would expose the deep state, with Epstein at the very top of the list. But the reality of his second term has been far more complicated, and to his base, far more disappointing. On immigration, a cornerstone of his political identity, he has surprisingly softened his stance, making concessions and choosing not to deport masses of migrant workers in crucial sectors like agriculture and hospitality, a move that smells of compromise with big business. On Ukraine, despite years of promising to end the forever wars and put America first, he has continued to authorize and support massive military aid packages, keeping the money flowing to a foreign conflict. And now, with the Epstein files, the crown jewel of all conspiracy truths, falling so pathetically short of expectations, Trump's base is beginning to ask the hardest questions imaginable. These aren't just questions about the government anymore. They're about the man himself. Is he still the outsider they fell in love with? Is he still the fighter, the slayer of dragons? Or has the swamp finally swallowed him? Has he, in the ultimate and most tragic irony, become a part of the very deep state he swore to destroy? This moment is absolutely critical. It's a hinge point in American political history, not just for the legacy of Donald Trump, but for the future of the entire MAGA movement. If the administration cannot find a way to rebuild this sacred trust, this could mark the beginning of the end, because this movement was never just about one man, as much as it seemed to be. It was about an idea, a powerful, revolutionary idea, that the people, not the distant and corrupt elites, should be the ones to decide the future of America. But that idea, that beautiful, potent idea, is now at risk of dying. Outside of the Washington bubble, most Americans are just trying to get by. They're grappling with real-life kitchen table concerns. The price of gas, the cost of groceries, the safety of their neighborhoods, and the stability of the world. Yet somehow it's the Epstein files, this dark, sordid, unresolved scandal that continues to stir the deepest and most powerful emotions. Why? Because it speaks to something primal in all of us, the ancient, gnawing fear that the people in charge operate by a different set of rules. The fear that, for the rich and powerful, crimes can be erased, victims can be silenced, and that the concept of justice for all is, and always has been, just a myth told to keep the rest of us in line. Making this all the more tragic and grounding this political drama in devastating human reality was the recent news that one of Epstein's survivors, a woman who had fought for years for the truth, recently took her own life. A grim, heartbreaking reminder that this isn't just a conspiracy theory debated on internet forums. It is a human tragedy of staggering proportions. A crisis not just of politics, but of conscience. So where do we go from here? The landscape is uncertain. Trump is a lame duck. He can't run again. But the MAGA movement is not going away. In fact, it may be in the process of evolving, shedding its skin. Donald Trump Jr. remains a powerful and influential voice, channeling the anger of the base. And new rising stars like Senator J.D. Vance are already being positioned as the heirs to the populist throne, leaders who can carry the torch forward. The Republican Party has been irrevocably changed. It is no longer the party of endless wars, unquestioning free trade, and corporate donors. It is now, for better or worse, a populist, nationalist force, deeply skeptical of globalization, profoundly distrustful of institutions, and directly connected to a wellspring of grassroots anger. And that anger isn't going away. If anything, as this latest chapter proves, it's growing stronger, more focused, and more willing to turn on its own leaders. So the legacy of Donald Trump and the ultimate fate of the political movement he created may depend not on the economy he builds, the foreign policy he enacts, or the border he secures. It may, in the end, all come down to one single haunting question. It will depend on whether the American people believe they were finally told the truth about Jeffrey Epstein. And right now, with every fiber of their being, they believe they were not.